Welcome back to the Stockwell Eldridge Show. Jason Stockwell with RE/MAX Results.
Don Eldridge, RE/MAX Results.
We have Stephanie Hevel with Wells Fargo, and we have Ed Cashmark, who is an economist, 10 years experience at Wells Fargo, now runs his own business in being an economist. And I have a personal story real quick. I studied chemistry at Gustavus Adolphus College. I got 2 years into it. Became overwhelmed. I missed a couple of days of physics, and I had inorganic chem, calculus 2, way getting over my head. Lab all the time, 8 a.m. classes 5 days a week, and lab 2 nights a week. My buddies were partying on Fridays. They had no classes. They didn't start class till 10:30. I said, what am I doing wrong here? Talked to my guidance counselor. I said, hey, what do I do with chemistry major? He says, well, it's similar to what you do in lab. And I hated lab. I said, okay, I'm 2 years in. It's an expensive school, and I'm already in debt. I don't want to go another year. What can I finish? What major can I finish in 2 years and still be able to go abroad? Financial economics.
Really?
No Friday classes, 10:30 a.m. start time. It's phenomenal, and I loved it.
So it is kind of like banker's hours, right?
But it was great. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I loved it. And a lot of the stuff we talked about, I didn't know what I would get into with an economics degree, but real estate ended up being it, and it was sales. But my question to Ed, you introduced to what you do and where your history was, but what do you do now? You said you create reports, and what's going on what does an economist do? Like if a kid's listening or a parent's listening and their kid's in economics major, what do they do? Besides sell real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's many different kinds of economists, but there's two main things. One is the quantitative side, where you do economic modeling and projections and forecasting and things like that. And then there's the other side where you do the writing the reports and giving speeches. Some people do some people do all. I did a little quantitative at Wells, but mostly it was just doing research, charts, writing reports, and giving presentations, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
So do people come to you then? Who comes to you? Like me, the public, saying, hey, what's going on in the economy? Am I safe to buy that cabin? Or am I safe in my job? Or what? Or is it just more companies that are coming to you and saying, hey, what do you see? What are we seeing?
Or writing blogs or...
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's basically, so far, it's pretty wide. I'm looking at telling people what's going on in the economy, and then you can kind of decide for yourself, how is that going to impact what you do, depending on what business you're in. A lot of times people are really looking for what's going on with employment, what's going on with interest rates, and what's going on with economic growth. So if you're a small business owner, or you're someone like you guys deal with people who are looking to buy a home, or if you're an investor, you want to know what's going on with interest rates, the stock market, employment, economy, those kinds of things. And so it's pretty broad-based.
Do you guys get a lot of things like you have a crystal ball, so you should be able to tell based on certain things that you can tell in the future what may or may not happen?
Well, and I think, I was going to say on that too, we got to have a conversation about the Federal Reserve Board, because we've talked about it too, our rates.
Yeah.
The Fed's going to raise the funds rates or anything like that. So that's maybe a comment on that as well. Or
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the things I look at like a hawk. I just read Janet Yellen's speech from a few weeks ago, and plus their statement from yesterday. And sometimes what they say you can understand, sometimes what they say you can't. And so I read through it and I kind of boil it down to more of a layman's terms. And basically what they're saying is the economy's not super strong right now. Like I said, it's pretty much middle of the road, but inflation isn't really doing anything right now. They're not really all that concerned about it. It's kind of trended up a little bit recently, but it's not to the point where they need to raise interest rates. That and the fact that there's still concerns about China, and now we're seeing slower employment growth, leads them to take some caution on this. So I've been telling people I really don't think they're going to raise rates. I told people that last year. They ended up raising it, but then the market said they were going to raise it 4 times this year. I said, no, I don't think they're going to raise it again. So it really depends on what's going on with inflation. I mean, that's their biggest indicator right now is a personal consumption expenditures index, and they look at the core rate.
And should people be nervous? I mean, like I said, there's sometimes I was saying, like, do people like, oh my gosh, the Fed's going to raise the fund rates, mortgage rates are going to go up. I mean, should we be scared if the Fed is going to raise rates?
I see some marketing out there that kind of ties into that.
I do, and that's kind of my point. Like, is it really?
Hey, buy now because rates are going to go up, and they will. But is it something that's a kind of over-aggressive advertisement, something like that, where when the Fed meets and raises rates, things are going to go bad, and now's the
Right,
time
that was my
to kinda
question,
deal.
yeah.
It all depends on the frequency and how much they raise. I mean, right now they're saying it's going to be a very gradual increase, if that. So you look at 25 basis points here, 25 basis points there, and that's not really going to do a whole lot, but it depends on kind of where the market is. If the market is really tight, it will have a bigger effect. If the market's looser, it really won't.
Okay.
Right now we're at a point where supply is very low, demand is very high, prices are rising, and so if the market goes up, or if mortgage rates go up, then that might get people to do. Initially, they might say, "Well, we got to buy a house now because this is as low as it's going to go." But then over time, that higher rate will tend to slow.
Okay,
sales.
so here's a lot of you listening are like, yes, an economist, kind of put the snooze on or put the Z's on or whatever you want to call it. But here's the deal. We're going to bring in another economist too. So we're going to hopefully create a little mini battle. No, I'm just kidding.
We're just
Are
going
you
to
ready?
geek out over data over here.
But okay, so
Take you back to college days.
Ed Cashmark is a local economist here live. We have Elliot Eisenberg on the line. He's been patiently waiting, and I met Elliot in St. Louis Park when he was presenting for a business on the economy, and he was talking about cars and how cars were booming and real estate wasn't quite there yet. And he may remember that. But we'll get Elliot on the line. He's the bow tie economist. So we have the everyday economist and the bow tie economist. We'll get Elliot on, and I want to get into the politics of it. How does the presidential election affect this? Will it affect this?
Yeah, good question.
And things like that. What can we anticipate from a Hillary or from a Trump candidacy or a presidency? Elliot, are you there?
I am here. How are you? Great to be on.
Yes, Elliot Eisenberg. How you doing, my man?
I'm terrific. Thank you, guys. How are you?
Good. So we have Dawn Eldridge, my partner here, and Stephanie Havel.
Hi, Elliot.
That was in tandem, the blondes. Hi,
The two
Elliot.
blondes, yeah.
That was planned.
And we have Ed Cashmark, who's a local economist here. And where are you at? I always want to refresh people on where you're at right now,
I'm
physically.
in Springfield, Massachusetts.
So you're in
Springfield
D.C.,
now.
right? You do all
Earlier.
you live in D.C. or you work around D.C. You know what's going on in
I live
D.C. all the time.
Correct. I was in Orlando and in Los Angeles earlier this week giving speeches.
Awesome. So I want to get into some of the questions that I have right away, and one of the questions is and this is the type of stuff that Elliot sends out. So if you want to sign up for his blog, you go to our Facebook page, folks. You'll find it. But here's what he sends out, and we'll go right into the politics piece of it right away. You talk about the hotel bookings. I think this is hilarious. So you said when U.S. hotel bookings were flat, while they're flat compared to 2015, Trump hotel bookings are down. The steepest decline is at Trump Soho, New York, where bookings are down 74%, followed by the Trump International Las Vegas, down by 71%, Toronto down 47%, and Honolulu bookings actually rose. So the question I have for that is, that's facts. That's happening. Is that happening just as a backlash because people are not wanting to stay there? Is that what you're seeing, Elliot? And what are you hearing in D.C.? The buzz in the media that I see is that it's all anti-Trump, other than like our station on the Patriot and other stations. What are you seeing in D.C.?
Yeah, I think people don't know what Trump is. I mean, that's the big issue, right? I mean, his comments are all over the place. This morning he talked about how he's going to be a big defender of gay rights and so on and so forth, and he's in favor of gun control. 2 weeks ago he was talking to the NRA. He was their best friend. I think that's what gets people particularly perturbed. The other thing is he's against trade. As an economist, the last thing we need in a slow-growing economy is a trade war with China and or anybody else. The problem is you don't know what you're getting with him.
So my question on that part is, when he talks about the trade issues, and Bernie was talking about it too, I kind of, on a basic level, I'm not an economist nearly like you or Ed, but I think that some of it makes sense to me. Is it, to economists, it totally doesn't make sense at all, is what you're saying?
Pretty much it doesn't make sense. And there are very unusual circumstances, but generally more trade is better. There are limited cases. I mean, some of the stuff with China over the last 15 years, they manipulated their currency and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, the last thing we need, right now, the last thing we need is a trade war.
So my question then to that is, when Trump says we're being taken advantage of, the U.S. is being taken advantage of by a lot of countries, is that false? Or is that true? Are we really being taken advantage of?
Generally is. It really is generally false. There may be particular cases, but no. Look, we had the benefit of very inexpensive imported goods in China for a long, long time that drove down prices, that allowed the boom of the 90s and the first half of the 2000s to come. We had massive growth, we had very low unemployment and very low inflation, and that was largely because of influx of cheap and imported goods from China.
And so is it the other way around then? Is Trump's perception is that the U.S. has been taken advantage of, but is in fact that we're taking advantage of other people, or what? And I know some of the listeners on the show are like really Trump backers, and so I just don't want to ruffle any feathers, but I want to get to the heart of what the issue is and why there's some backlash against him.
I mean, look, the issue with trade is, look, we lost several million jobs in manufacturing because of the increase in trade with China over the 15 years beginning around 1990 or so, right? 2000, the year 2000. So there was definitely a negative consequence, and we're always aware of that loss in employment. It's very clear. I lost my job because my job was outsourced to China. What we don't see, however, is the benefit of cheaper fans and cheaper air conditioners and cheaper TV sets and so on and so forth. So you've got to look at the positive and the negative. It's easy to focus on the negative. All politicians do that because it's a vote-getting strategy, but it's not the full picture, and that's the problem.
Okay,
and that's what I don't like seeing in his case. And there'll be retaliation, right? There'll be retaliation if we go down that road.
Yeah, but he says we're going to win, so...
Yeah, it's easy to say, but moreover, he can't impose it. He has to get Congress to approve it.
Yeah, that's true.
Trade treaties aren't run by executive order, so he can't.
Well, and when we get back, I'm going to ask about Hillary, and I'm going to get Ed in on this as well because I want to see what Hillary's alternative is because I'm having trouble with that as well. So if you can stay on, Elliot, for about one more segment.
Sure, happy to do it.
All right, we'll be back. I'm Jason Stockwell with RE/MAX Results.
Don Eldridge, RE/MAX Results.